Chris Lee and Blake Lovell here from Southeastern 14. We are going to talk about SEC basketball games on Saturday, February the 19th. In order of tip-off, Ole Miss goes to Georgia. That game tips off at 1 Eastern in Athens. The Rebels are 2-point favorites according to Ken Pom. Probably not exactly the game everybody's circling to watch on their schedule, but we break them all down. What are your thoughts here?
Well, what are your thoughts? I mean, what is anyone's thoughts for this game?
Let's set this up. Okay, one team coming off a blowout, the other team gets its heart broken by a midcourt bank shot on its home floor.
I'm gonna make this. Overtime. This is gonna be this episode. I'm gonna turn everything back to you on this one. We're gonna reverse chairs on this one. I mean,
what you're saying is you want all the hate mail going my way.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Look, I picked Georgia to beat South Carolina, and I talked about it. I was like, hey, I think this may be a spot, and I said I feel like Georgia's got to win another game somewhere, right? Well, this is their last opportunity, in my opinion. So this is their best chance to do it. But like you said, I do think sort of in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, how does Ole Miss respond coming off that buzzer beater loss? And that felt like a good win opportunity for them. Kario Kendo is really good.
Was really good on against LSU. Nobody else was.
He's been really good this season. I think that's the thing is like when you have a team that's not this. That's this bad. He's not going to get any sort of recognition probably just because everyone kind of looks at the team results. But he's a really good player, and he could go off here, and I certainly give Georgia a win. I just don't know I don't know how I can pick Georgia though. Like it's even with Ole Miss coming off of this loss, I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. Like this is one where to me it's all about like Ole Miss's response to losing at the buzzer. And if they come out and play like they know how to play, then I think they'll win this game. Because think about this too. Ole Miss has actually played pretty well on the road here recently, and that's something too that I think you have to keep in mind. But they've lost some close games, and at a certain point, I think those maybe just kind of catch up with you. You're like, we just don't know how to make those plays to win in those scenarios. I'll pick Ole Miss. Look, if you have any sort of confidence one way or the other in this one, congratulations, because I don't. I just don't have a good feel for either of these two teams right now. Haven't really most of the season, but I think it goes down to the wire. But I'll pick Ole Miss.
Georgia's lost 6 in a row. Ole Miss has lost 4 in a row. 2 of Ole Miss's have been an OT. And here's this, okay? Maybe I'm making too much of this, but 2 home games ago, or 2 games ago, last home game, Georgia loses to South Carolina by a dozen points. Tom Crean doesn't do his radio show. They go to LSU and get blown out all night. At some point you just don't have much to play for. And when a coach is skipping out on stuff like that, you wonder what's going on. Is not great vibes on either side right now. But maybe. I don't know. Maybe a little more.
As good as mine, man.
Well, point is, I don't like the feel of all that, right? And if you're gonna, I usually tend to default in a game like this, just go with the home team. But I'm with you. I kind of feel this feels a little bit more like Ole Miss under the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, this is why we always go back to this. Like, this is why we make predictions, but like this is mostly previews. Because if you actually think any of us have any idea on how to predict a game like this, I would probably look elsewhere because I don't. I just don't have a good feel for this game. Anyone who does, again, congratulations, because you've found something that I haven't found with these two teams. I don't know what to say. So
at the same time in Lexington, again, that is 1 Eastern, Kentucky hosts Alabama. Alabama about a 10-point underdog according to Ken Pomeroy. I think this could be interesting. Hard to see Kentucky losing it, but you got the Washington injury. I don't know that we know where that's going to go. How do you see this?
I don't think it's that hard to see Kentucky losing this, but
really,
it's all about him, though. And once again, we're doing this for the third straight time where we said we don't know if he's, or second straight time, I guess now, where we don't know if he's going to play. And I just get the thought that he's not going to. Now, I mean, again, we're guessing here, but when Calipari came out afterwards and said, he probably shouldn't have played the other night in that game against Tennessee, and I mean, I feel like at this point, yeah, these are big games, but if you're Kentucky, you're in such a good spot right now that I think you have to exercise some caution here with him, because this is not something you want lingering into March, right? Like you want to. I mean, Kentucky has room for error. Like, unlike a lot of teams, like they have room for error. They can lose this game and still be perfectly fine. So I think that's why. And look, the reason I said I could totally see Kentucky losing this is because it's Alabama, because it's a team that's done this so many times this year. Now, for the most part, they've done it all at home. So that is what's different. And remember, these two teams played 2 weeks ago, and Alabama could not get a good shot or hit a good shot for anything. I mean, they go 3 of 30 from three, and that's the thing too. Is like, do you think Alabama's going to go 3 for 30 from three again in this game? I feel like that's hard to really believe. I think they'll hit more shots from that than from outside, but still, to me, Alabama, the way they handle the ball sometimes, it's just some of the turnovers they make, to me, just come like it just the worst times for them. And I'm going to pick Kentucky to win this game. Don't get me wrong, but I do see, I think if we do what we're supposed to do, which for us is we have to point out both sides here, I can see a path for Alabama just because, look, if Washington doesn't play, there's one path. If, let's say Shackelford and Quinterly, which, as we said, Quinterly stepping up, playing better is huge for them. If those two guys get hot from three, I mean, Alabama can beat anyone.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it before. So I think that is something, you look at going to this game. And obviously for Kentucky, you would certainly expect, Kellen Grady's going to shoot the ball better at home. I think the game against Tennessee was just one of those where, you just don't make shots. And but with the unknown of Washington, I think it's hard to completely break down this matchup with or without, because you're still looking at the same things we talked about the previous time with these two teams. But yeah, I'm going to pick Kentucky. I think Oscar Tshiebwe, Bediako, that's an interesting matchup because we've said Bediako's played better, in these recent games, and that's been key for Alabama. But I think you look back at that previous game too. He had 12 and 8. So I think he can kind of be that person that can push Alabama too in this game. But yeah, I mean, there's been a difference between Alabama on the road minus, the Ole Miss game, right? This is still a team that lost on the road to Georgia, and that trust factor to me is still not back there yet. So I'm going to pick Kentucky, and yeah, I think it's just a matter of. I think the bigger unknown is how the game plays out, because I think Washington, on or off the floor, will decide a lot of that.
Well, Nate Oates would probably say his team's been a little different from since the Georgia game. Which I'd probably
don't
agree
get me
with,
wrong.
but
They have absolutely been different, but
yeah,
as I said, that's after it happened. I said this is one of those things going to be burned in your brain that you're always going to think about, because
yeah.
especially if Georgia doesn't win a game the rest of the season. So no, I mean, yes, they've absolutely played better. It's just I think we said going into the last time, Kentucky felt like a bad matchup for Alabama. In that previous meeting, they held them to 55 points. Again, I think Alabama will shoot much better from three. I don't think they're going 3 of 30 again, but I think there'll be more scoring in this game. That's probably my better prediction than the last one, which was 66-55. So
Kentucky's unbeaten at home.
Yeah.
The last few, okay, they handled Florida pretty easily. Before that, it was Vandy that won that one by 7. Before that, State took them to overtime. Again, I think that was a Washington-less game.
I think so.
Maybe he got hurt in that one.
Yeah, he didn't play in that one.
Boy, so much comes back to that. But Kentucky to win, Alabama to cover 10 or so seems
Seems
the safe
reasonable.
pick. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move to Gainesville. Gators tip-off. A lot of Eastern tip-offs in this one, Eastern venues. That one at 2 Eastern. Auburn, about a 6-point favorite on Ken Palm, which seems a little low to me. Castleton's back, playing pretty well, but Florida just has not put it together with authority for a long time, and Auburn's just been so consistent.
Yeah, I just can't pick Florida here. I can't do it. I know Auburn, the issues on the road. We've talked about it. There's no reason to spend a ton of time on it. Anyone who's watched them knows they just haven't played as well on the road. They escaped with 2 wins at Missouri and Georgia, lost at Arkansas. But I just don't trust Florida. That's the deal here. Is look, this team, as I said, they had their chance to not fall off the NCAA tournament bubble. You're up 4 with a minute and a half to go against A&M, and you don't find a way to win that game. You make the opposite plays you need to make in that scenario, and now you lose, and you're fighting an uphill battle. Yes, everything can change here because if you beat Auburn, all of a sudden you're right back there again, and you're right there with a chance to get in. But yes, like any time Auburn has gone on the road, this crowd will be great, atmosphere will be great. It will be a challenge. You've at least got someone like Colin Castleton on the other side that can try to outduel, a Kessler or a Jabari Smith. But I just think those two are better players. And that's not a knock on Colin Castleton. It's just, I think in that matchup, I like those two better than him. And I think that's going to present some challenges for him. And we know how much of what Florida does goes through Colin Castleton. And that's what I worry about in this one is if they were to, take him out of the equation and those two guys get the better of that matchup, or Kessler gets the better of that matchup, then I think you've got issues for Florida, and that's why I find it hard to find any other ways that they're going to be able to beat a team like Auburn. Now I will go back to this. I think shot selection, that is something that I kind of laughed off when it was mentioned of initially, but that is where in road games like this and close games, that is something to keep an eye on with Auburn because there have been some of those where you just look up, you're like, whoa, like where'd that come from? Like that was probably not a great shot in that scenario, but we've seen that before. They've still managed to, be okay. I think Florida's got to force some turnovers. They got to force bad shots. I'm not saying anything that, is groundbreaking. That's just what they have to do to win this game. Problem is, I don't have enough confidence in Florida being able to score enough to keep up with Auburn here. So I'm gonna pick Auburn.
Yeah, Florida just has been competitive most nights, but just is beating the teams it should beat for the most part. And when it runs into the elite teams, it just hasn't been much of a match for those teams of late.
Let's say this too. I mean, Florida's won 5 straight home games. So, but who is that, right? Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Georgia.
Yeah, not an NCAA tournament team in there anywhere.
No, so that's the issue on that.
Okay, LSU and South Carolina, another Eastern time zone game. LSU about a 6-point dog, according to Ken Palm, heading into Columbia.
LSU's a 6-point underdog?
I'm sorry, 6-point favorite.
Okay.
Pardon me.
I didn't have it pulled up. I was about to say, wow, so they know something I don't. So
I'm just seeing if you're paying attention.
Well, listen, you never know against South Carolina, right? Like I wouldn't be just flip it and say, well, that's probably what you're going to get. But no, I mean, this is a game that
I don't think this is a give me because Carolina has started to put together good outings with its better players. It's won 6 games in the league. LSU's played better, but on the other hand, Carolina's lost several games at home this year. If you want to go back a little bit, but I don't know. To me, it's what Carolina team shows up.
I'm back to talking up LSU again because they have Xavier Pinson back. But one thing I've said all season long is LSU is not a great offensive team. And if they go cold, they can be beaten because that is just, that's how it works. Even as good as they are defensively, which I keep pointing out. I mean, isn't it just incredible that this team has not given up 80 points in the league this year?
And not over 70 most nights.
I was going to say, it's not even over 70. Like, I was going down through it. I'm like, this team doesn't give up a lot of points, period. So, yeah, and that's why I think this one is where, because their defense is so good, they're going to have some off-scoring nights, but they've still managed to be right there even when they do. So, this is a matter of what you get from South Carolina, and we stopped trying to predict what you're going to get from South Carolina a long time ago, but the one thing we have said is, look, South Carolina's 6-7 in the league, but all 6 of those wins have come against non-tournament teams. This is, a tournament team here, and we've seen kind of the the history against teams that have, are tournament teams. They've lost to Auburn at home. They've lost to Florida, not in yet, but they're at least on that conversation. They've lost Tennessee at home, Kentucky at home, and so three of those four are by 10 or more. So I think that's what I look at here and say LSU's probably the better pick, even though a cold night from LSU is going to affect LSU more than maybe it does some of these other teams, just because I don't think they're on the level offensively as a lot of these other top tier teams in the SEC, or really any of these other top tier teams in the SEC. So that's what I think you worry about with LSU in a game like this against a good defensive team. So this may be the one we look up and say this was kind of the upset special of the weekend. I wouldn't be shocked by it, but I'm not going to predict it because I just think that, kind of like we said with some of these other teams, this is one of those to me, like, all right, prove you can beat a good team, prove you can beat an NCAA tournament caliber team. And I think that's what you want from South Carolina here if you're going to make that claim. And I think until they do it, I can't pick them to do it. So
okay, I'm going to go with two things here. Is I listened to you talk this out. When South Carolina has won this year in the league, what has happened?
Yeah, I mean, we've said they've had their two guys, or at least one of their two guys that have played well, Bryant or Guznard, and it's been Bryant more recently, I think. So that's been a big key.
That's one, and I think it's just harder to finish at the rim with an Eason and some of those guys around, and with the, I mean, here's the other thing. I think LSU leads the league in steals. Carolina's been awful with ball security, and when Carolina wins, it's turning you over. But if Pinson's in that point guard chair, that's a totally different team, as we said. So the more I think this out, the more it seems to favor LSU just based on what we've seen from these teams in conference play.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be easy, but yeah, I think it'll be a close game. But again, to me, it's like when we do these, you just have to go on what you've seen. It's so hard to say. Well, we're going to see this, but we haven't seen it before, right? Like when we make our predictions and when we preview these games, you have to go based on what you've seen to this point. And what I've seen to this point is South Carolina's beaten a lot of average teams or lower, and LSU are back at full strength for the first time in a while. Put those two together, and I just think LSU's better. So.
Okay, in my mind, this next one,
boy.
the most interesting.
Skip. Can I any way I go here, it's not going to be pretty. So, oh boy, go ahead.
Yeah, you're going to pick against Arkansas, aren't you?
I'm picking Ted Valentine, Chuck Daly, Pat Adams, anyone else who could be refereeing that game. So.
Well, this one tips off at 4 Eastern. Ken Palm's got us a toss-up. He's got Tennessee by 1. I don't know. I just have a very hard time picking against Arkansas and Fayetteville. And Tennessee is playing wonderful basketball right now. But this is one of these situations where I think home court might mean a lot.
Yeah, flip it, and I'm picking Tennessee. But since it's in Fayetteville, I'm picking Arkansas, man. It's just one of those now where, look, we do this all the time, right? I actually went against it, with the Kentucky-Tennessee thing, because I was like, all right, I think Kentucky, maybe something there. And as we saw, that was not a good idea. So I may revert back to that now and say, all right, maybe I should pick the home team in a battle of two giants. So I think that's what I'll do here. I don't have a great feel in this game one way or the other because, again, you're talking about two teams that over the past month have played as well as anybody, not just in the league, I think, but really you put these two teams up against a lot of teams nationally in terms of how they're playing right now. So this should be, we say this all the time, but this should be, I think, one of the better games of the SEC season. I don't have much of a doubt about that. I think this is going to be a great game. We know the atmosphere is going to be fantastic. And I think it's, to me, still, and I'm going to go back to this again, there's two factors here. One is Jalen Williams. If he keeps playing the way he's been playing, I think that's going to be significant, right? Because we keep talking about it. Look at, they do for Tennessee or John Fulkerson or those guys. Those guys have been stepping up and playing really well, with Kamwa out. And I think if Williams can sort of, make a huge impact in a game like this and kind of counter what those guys are going to be able to do in the front court, that's going to be significant. And also Tennessee's guards, right? Like that to me is also
they will turn you over.
to where, this is like this to me. Look, you couldn't afford it against Alabama, but like this to me is a game where like if you're Arkansas, you cannot afford to get in foul trouble because if you have JD Notae, those kind of guys on the bench for an extended amount of time, I think that's significant in a game like this. Now, again, I'm not saying anything that is that surprising. That's just you're playing a very quality team here in Tennessee who is playing as well as they played all season long. They're as confident as they've been, and their backcourt's as confident as they've ever been. So that's why I think that's going to be a huge part of this game to see. Can Tennessee force those turnovers? Can Jalen Williams keep playing the way he's been playing? And I think those are the biggest things because if one of those goes the way you don't think it's going to go, that can be such a huge, huge advantage one way or the other. So, I mean, you look at it on paper, the turnovers are the one thing I would look at here and say, can Tennessee force those mistakes? As we said last time, they were still, top 10, 15 in the country, around somewhere in there in that area. I want to say forcing about 16, 17 a game. So I think that's it. And to me, that's what it comes down to here is, and also something else I want to point out here too. We mentioned this before. Tennessee's really been shooting the ball well from outside.
Yeah.
Can they get that same sort of output in this game on the road against a pretty good team in terms of their quickness? We talked about JD Notae, his ability to force steals and those kind of things. Can they get those same looks? Can they hit those kind of looks against Arkansas? That's another important aspect here. We could spend an hour breaking this game down because there's so many little tiny facets to this matchup that are interesting. But if this game was in Knoxville, I'd pick Tennessee. Because it's in Fayetteville, I'll pick Arkansas.
Arkansas is 19th in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted defensive efficiency now. Am I imagining? I think
Huge
they've shot
jump.
up. Yeah. I don't remember them being that good defensively early in the year. But
no, that was what we kept bringing up. We said, look, they're not as good defensively as they were last year. And now they've managed to get a lot better in that area. So, yeah.
Last one, Vandy hosting Texas A&M. Ken Pomeroy has this 3 points in the Commodores' favor. This one tipping off 5 Central in Nashville. A&M snapped, a 9-game losing streak. As we've noted, a lot of those losses have been close. It's not a team that lacks talent. Vanderbilt has just been gritty for a while. Scottie Pippen has had several Scottie Pippen-type games. Comes off one of his best games at Auburn, but Vandy without Rodney Chapman, and that makes a difference, although Liam Robbins, their big guy, been playing more minutes, which is probably going to come in handy as A&M's got a good big and Henry Coleman III. This feels like one of those coin flip games and go with the home team.
This feels like a trap for Vanderbilt to me because
that too, maybe.
If Chapman doesn't play, which again, like you said, the assumption is that he won't, A&M is still, as of today, they're 11th, forcing 18 turnovers a game, and that worries me a little bit for Vanderbilt here because, that's a little concerning. I think because look, Buzz Williams, I keep saying it, like he's a really good coach, and I think everyone knows that, and I think he understands defensively matchup wise, and we've said it. Even against the good teams like Kentucky, Kentucky's one of those teams, but Texas A&M has found a way to match up really well with a lot of these teams. So that worries me a little bit. Maybe if they can find some ways to frustrate Pippen and force those turnovers, as we've said, he's had some of those games where, maybe not the greatest ball handling games and those kind of things. You're going to have a team here that's really going to try to turn up that pressure to force those mistakes. That I think is an issue for Vanderbilt in this one. But on the flip side of that, this is a sneaky important game for Vanderbilt because if they win this game, you're 6-8 in the league. Then you've got a really great opportunity next Tuesday against Alabama. If you win that, okay, you go to 7-8 in the league. You've got a NCAA tournament team win on your resume, and then you've got some opportunity the rest of the way. So I'm going to pick Vanderbilt actually, but I think that why I think it's a potential trap is because I don't think we can discount A&M's ability to force mistakes, especially if Chapman doesn't play. If they can figure out a way to force the action everywhere outside of Scottie Pippen, or at least frustrate him to the point to where he's having to take bad shots, I think that can be a Texas A&M win. But there's just something different about this Vanderbilt team right now, and I like the way they've been playing. Even at the loss at Auburn, we said it. Even at Tennessee, they have played really well over the past several weeks or so. I guess after that South Carolina loss, like they've really turned things around since then. So they're the home team. I'll pick Vanderbilt, but this is one that I'm probably up and down the board here. Like this is kind of low on the confidence rankings because I think A&M with their forcing turnovers can actually make that a problem and maybe get a win here.
Yeah, A&M ninth in the country in the rate at which it forces turnovers, according to Ken Palm. These teams haven't played this year. The last time they did play was last year in the conference tournament. Vanderbilt won that one. That was a mostly different A&M team. I want to say the year before. I'll look this up. Because you mentioned their press. I think Buzz has given Vandy some issues with that before.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a team too that for A&M, that's the thing is like I think we have to keep this in mind. Like this, I think this team is better than their record indicates.
Oh, for sure.
And we didn't know about that when they were 4-0 in the league, right? They were 15-2, and we thought, well, they're probably not as good as this. But I think now that they're 16-10, I still am looking at it and saying, well, they're 5-8 in the league. I still think they're a little better than that. They've lost some of these close games, as we've said, and they played a tough schedule too. The rest of their schedule the rest of the way is very manageable. So yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup. This is kind of a sneaky good game in my opinion. I don't know how many eyeballs will be on it, but I think this is a sneaky good one to me.
Confidence level in these six. This is not easy.
All right. I'm going to give you, man. Yeah, wow. I just realized this is not easy. Like, who would be number one?
Maybe Auburn. And that's on the road.
Man. Yeah. I guess so. That's probably, I guess, yeah, by default, that probably has to be
maybe
number
Kentucky to win in Rupp outright.
So.
There's the Washington thing. We don't know about that. Alabama can pop up and get you on any given night. Although that's more at home than on the road. But
I guess
they did beat Gonzaga in Seattle, so you can't say it can't happen. Although Rupp's a different thing. But
I'll go Auburn 1. Man, after that, it's like I have no idea.
I'm almost
Kentucky,
thinking LSU because of the matchup.
Yeah, that one worries me though for LSU. I don't love it.
I think our confidence level is about as low for any slate of games we picked on the weekend all year.
That's probably true now that I think about it. There is not one game that I am just like a lock.
No.
Like even Auburn at Florida is not a lock because we know Florida's capable. We just haven't seen it enough. I don't think there's one stone cold lead pipe lock on this slate. So if that's what you're looking for, dial one of the 800 numbers because you're not getting it from us. So yeah, I mean, I think Kentucky will be fine, as I said. But look, I'm not saying this. Anyone who's listening to this knows that I'm very high on Kentucky and how they've been playing. But it's like without Washington, I just don't. It's so hard to gauge what you're going to get at times. So I'll go Auburn number 1. I guess Kentucky 2, but that's not strong. And it's like, then what? I mean, probably LSU would be 3. I don't know.
Probably Ole Miss 4.
Yeah, I was going to say I've got to put Tennessee, Arkansas at the bottom because I just think that's a 50-50 game in my opinion. So there you go. Look at this. You look how long it took us to try to figure out even come close to ranking those. So if you're don't put it all on these games. Let me just tell you, unless you just feel really strongly one way or the other. If you're a fan of one of these teams and you feel confident, go for it. But as an unbiased observer, I don't feel strongly about any of these right now. So.
Tell folks about our partnership with Action 24/7.
Yeah, what a great sell that was to tell you to go bet for our friends at Action 24/7. In the description below, click on that link, use the code South14. They'll match your first deposit up to $800. So if you do want to bet on any of these games, you again are a lot more confident than probably we are right now. But yeah, so click on that link, South14 is the code, and sign up with them.
All right, he's Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. Thanks for watching, and we'll got more content coming up soon. Don't forget, we're getting big into baseball. Lots of action this weekend. We'll have breakdowns of that for you next week. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Have a good weekend. We'll see you soon.